Two carers left a disabled man naked and trapped in a bath for up to 21 hours. Scott Sloan, 46, and Paul Campbell, 54, failed to help Andrew McKinnell at his home in Carntyne, Glasgow in November last year. The vulnerable 55-year-old had earlier slipped into the bath and was unable to get out. Sloan, who had cared for Mr McKinnell for 18 months, then went to sleep while on duty. He had telephoned Campbell before nodding off for advice, but was told to leave Mr McKinnell where he was. Mr McKinnell, who has the mental capacity of a 6-year-old, was only rescued when Campbell later turned up and alerted a fellow supervisor. The incident landed the pair, who worked for Inclusion Scotland, in the dock at Glasgow Sheriff Court. The pair each pled guilty to the willful neglect of Mr McKinnell, who needs round-the-clock care. Sloan was charged with failing to provide assistance to exit the bath, failing to provide blanket or clothing while Mr McKinnell was trapped in the bath, and retiring to bed leaving the victim unsupervised for 17 hours. Campbell was charged with instructing Sloan as his supervisor to leave the victim in the bath and advising his colleague to retire to bed leaving the victim there. Prosecutors added he failed to contact emergency services when unable to move the victim from the bath after being trapped for 21 hours. Sloan was ordered to carry out 200 hours of unpaid work and Campbell 240 hours as an alternative to jail. Sheriff Valerie Mays said, "I think it goes without saying that this is an awful offence and the behaviour towards a vulnerable man is nothing short of despicable. It must have been obvious to you after a certain amount of time that he needed assistance and you left that man in the bath. It must have been a very frightening experience for him and your behaviour was callous." The court heard Sloan was on a shift at 10 a.m. supposedly looking after Mr McKinnell when the disabled man went for a shower at 5:30 p.m. Prosecutor Graham MacDonald said, "Mr McKinnell became unbalanced and fell sliding back down the wall before coming to rest at a seated position." Sloan was of the opinion that Mr McKinnell lost his balance and had fallen. Mr McKinnell said he wanted to get out the bath and he didn't receive any assistance to do that. Sloan called Campbell, who was on a day off. The court heard he was told to leave a trapped Mr McKinnell in the bath. Sloan then went to sleep at midnight, abandoning the man overnight. Campbell arrived the next day at 10 a.m. and initially called NHS 24. 4 hours later, a 999 call was made for Mr McKinnell and an ambulance arrived at 2:30 p.m. when the victim had been lying for 21 hours. Mr McKinnell was then finally lifted out and taken to hospital. He fortunately only escaped with bruising on his back. For more on this story, visit the news article link.